Every year, millions of students walk into college lecture halls, convinced that what happens in those rooms will determine the rest of their lives. And for most people, that's probably true. But there is a very specific group of people who walked into those same halls, looked around, did the math, and quietly walked back out. No dramatic speech, no manifesto, no burning of the diploma they never finished earning. They just left, and then built some of the most valuable companies in the history of capitalism. Now, here's what nobody tells you about the billionaire dropout story. It was never about courage. It was never about rebellion. And it was definitely never about the dropout being smarter than everyone who stayed. It was about one thing. The cost of staying was higher than the cost of leaving. That's it. That's the whole story. Except, as always, the details are far more interesting than the headline. Stay until the end. The last dropout on this list is the one nobody remembers, and his story might be the most important one of all. This is every billionaire who dropped out of college, explained. The one who already had the answer, Bill Gates. It's 1973. A 17-year-old kid from Seattle scores a perfect 1,590 out of 1,600 on his SATs. He gets into Harvard. His parents are relieved. The path is clear. The future is set. He lasts 2 years. Bill Gates didn't drop out of Harvard because he was bored. He didn't drop out because he hated school, or couldn't keep up, or had some romantic vision of himself as a rebel genius. He dropped out because he had already solved the problem he went there to think about. In 1975, Gates and Paul Allen read a single article in a magazine about the Altair 8801, of the first personal computers ever built. And Gates saw something in that moment that almost nobody else on Earth saw. Every computer in the world was going to need software, and nobody was building it yet. He called the company that made the Altair and told them he had software ready to sell. He didn't. He hadn't written a single line of it yet. He wrote it after they said yes. That detail, that specific, slightly insane detail, tells you more about Bill Gates than any biography ever will. This was not a man who dropped out because he was lost. This was a man who dropped out because he was already ahead of where Harvard was trying to take him. He left to go build the future. Harvard just wasn't moving fast enough to keep up. Gates went back to Harvard 32 years later to receive an honorary degree. In his speech, he joked that it was nice to finally finish. The audience laughed. He was worth about $56 billion at the time. Harvard needed him more than he ever needed Harvard. And everyone in that room knew it. The one who couldn't wait. Mark Zuckerberg, February 2004. A 19-year-old Harvard sophomore launches a website from his dorm room. Within 24 hours, 1,200 students have signed up. Within a month, half of Harvard is on it. He doesn't sleep much that month. Not because he's stressed, because he's watching the numbers, and the numbers are doing something he's never seen before. They just keep going up. Mark Zuckerberg didn't drop out of Harvard because he was a visionary who saw the future of human connection. He dropped out because the thing he built wouldn't stop growing long enough for him to attend class. And here's the part of the Zuckerberg story that gets left out of the inspirational version. He almost didn't make it. In the early days, a company called MySpace was dominating social networking. News Corp bought it for $580 million. Everyone assumed it was over, that the space was taken, that Facebook was a college experiment that would fade out the moment students graduated and needed something more professional. Zuckerberg got acquisition offers, multiple ones, including one from Viacom, for $75 million when he was 22 years old. He said no, not because he was certain, because he couldn't imagine stopping. That decision, turning down $75 million at 22, is either the most confident move in the history of Silicon Valley, or the most reckless thing a college dropout ever did, depending on how the story ends. It's one or the other. As it turned out, Meta is now worth over $1 trillion, so we call it confidence. We always call it confidence when it works. The One Life pushed out Michael Dell, a 15-year-old kid in Houston, is selling newspaper subscriptions over the phone to make extra money. He quickly figures out that newlyweds and people who just moved are the most likely to subscribe. So he gets the marriage license records and the new mortgage filings from the county clerk's office. He makes $18,000 that summer, more than his history teacher makes in a year. He is 15 years old. Michael Dell didn't drop out of college because of a vision. He dropped out because he was already running a business out of his dorm room, and that business was growing faster than he could manage it. While also attending class, he started buying leftover IBM PC components from local dealers, upgrading them, and selling them directly to customers at prices lower than retail. No middleman, no markup for features people didn't need, just a computer, built the way the customer actually wanted it, delivered directly. His parents found out and flew to Austin to talk sense into him. He told them he wanted to compete with IBM. His parents reasonably thought this was insane. He was 19. His dorm room was full of computer parts. He had $1,000 in startup capital. IBM had 350,000 employees. His parents asked him to finish the semester first. Just finish the semester. He agreed, and then immediately applied for a business license the next day. Dell Computer Corporation was officially founded in 1984. Michael Dell was 19 years old and had $1,000 in the bank. By the time he was 27, he was a billionaire. The semester, for the record, was never finished. The one who never really needed to be there, Travis Kalanick, UCLA, a junior named Travis Kalanick, stops attending most of his classes because he's running a file-sharing startup called Scour out of his parents' house. He's not failing. He's just not there. There's a difference, and it matters. Travis Kalanick is the dropout the motivational speakers don't use as an example, because his story is messier, less clean, less inspirational in the way that fits on a poster. Scour got sued by the entertainment industry for $250 billion. Yes, billion in copyright damages. The company filed for bankruptcy. Kalanick lost everything. He was Most people would have gone back to finish the degree at that point. Kalanick started another company. It also failed. He started another one. That one was Uber. The idea came on a snowy night in Paris in 2008 when he and a friend couldn't get a cab. He wondered out loud, what if you could push a button and a car just appeared? That question, asked out of pure personal frustration on a cold street in Paris, eventually became a company worth $75 billion. Kalanick built Uber into one of the most disruptive companies in history. He also got forced out of his own company by his own board in 2017 after a string of scandals that made the headlines look like a very expensive reality show. He left with over $1.4 billion, which is either a punishment or a reward, depending on how you look at it. College, for the record, was never mentioned again. The one everybody forgot, Jan Koum, a 16-year-old boy, arrives in the United States from a small village outside Kyiv, Ukraine. He doesn't speak English. His mother cleans houses. They live in a 2-bedroom apartment on government food stamps. He teaches himself computer networking from manuals he finds at used bookstores. He gets into San Jose State. He drops out, not because he had a vision, not because a company was growing too fast, not because he saw a gap in the market that couldn't wait, because he needed to work, because the rent had to be paid, and the food stamps weren't enough, and there wasn't time for both. Jan Koum applied for a job at Facebook in 2007. They rejected him. He applied at Twitter. They rejected him too. In 2009, broke, unemployed, running out of options, he bought an iPhone and had a single thought. What if there was an app that showed your status to your contacts? Available, busy, at the gym, on a call. Simple, almost pointlessly simple. He built it in a weekend. WhatsApp launched in 2009. By 2014, 5 years later, Facebook bought it for $19 billion. The same company that had rejected his job application 7 years earlier. Jan Koum walked into the Facebook headquarters to sign the acquisition papers and stopped outside the front door. Because that exact building, used to be the offices of the social services agency where he and his mother collected food stamps when they first arrived in America. He stood there for a moment. Then he went inside and signed a deal worth $19 billion. Which one of these dropouts do you think made the most important decision of their life by leaving? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. 5 dropouts. 5 completely different reasons for leaving. Do you know anyone who dropped out of school and became successful? Write in the comments so we can hear about them. Actually, I know someone who dropped out of high school and built a company from his bedroom. He worked in e-commerce. He spent 2 years without leaving the house, and when he finally did, he built something much bigger. He launched his own e-commerce business and sold over $2 million worth of products by the age of 26. That's what nobody talks about in the motivational stories. They dropped out of school or college because the cost of staying was higher than the cost of leaving. The real question isn't whether you should drop out. The real question is, what are you doing right now that has a higher cost than you're admitting? Sit with that one for a while. Next video, I'm breaking down every self-made billionaire. The ones who started with nothing. No family money, no connections, no safety net. Just an idea and an unreasonable amount of refusal to quit. If you don't want to miss that, subscribe. It drops this week. See you in the next one.